So, welcome to the next in our online series of messages brought to you by the Friends at Center Congregational Church. This is Reverend Tom Bentley, the pastor, hoping that these messages can help you in your journey of life. If you'd like to know more about Center Congregational Church, there'll be some information for you at the end of this video. So, thanks for spending time with us, and peace and best wishes from our friend Jesus. A few days ago, I was able to see the results of a Pew survey that found that 53% of U.S. adults view the morality and ethics of their fellow citizens as bad. That's either on a scale of somewhat to very bad. And this makes the United States the only nation among 25 surveyed nations where a majority holds this view. This is extreme political polarization, as 60% of Democrats and 46% of Republicans rate their counterparts negatively. Now compare that to Canada. In Canada, only 7% view the morality and ethics of their fellow citizens as bad. The truth is, we in this country are seeing, by our preconceived prejudice, a distorted reality. Our eyes are not open to the truth. We need to find a way to the truth. We have a story in the gospel about a man that's born blind, and Jesus restores his sight. And it speaks to us in surprising new ways for our current own time. Walking down the street, Jesus saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, causing him to be born blind?" Jesus said, "You're asking the wrong question. You're looking for someone to blame. There's no such cause-effect here. Look instead for what God can do. We need to be energetically at work for the one who sent me here, working while the sun shines. When night falls, the workday is over. For as long as I am in the world, there is plenty of light. I am the world's light." He said this and then spit in the dust, made a clay paste with the saliva, rubbed the paste on the blind man's eyes, and said, "Go, wash at the pool of Siloam." Siloam means sent. The man went and washed and saw. Soon the town was buzzing. His relatives and those who year after year had seen him as a man begging were saying, "Why, isn't this the man we knew who sat there and begged?" Others said, "It's him all right." But others objected. "It's not the same man at all. It just looks like him." He said, "It's me, the very one." They said, "How did your eyes get opened?" "A man named Jesus made a paste and rubbed it on my eyes and told me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' I did what he said. When I washed, I saw." "So where is he?" "I don't know." They marched the man to the Pharisees. This day, when Jesus made the paste and healed his blindness, was the Sabbath. The Pharisees grilled him again on how he'd come to see. He said, "He put a clay paste on my eyes and I washed and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "Obviously, this man can't be from God. He doesn't keep the Sabbath." Others countered, "How can a man do miraculous, God-revealing things like this?" There was a split in their ranks. They came back at the blind man. "You're the expert. He opened your eyes. What do you say about him?" He said, "He is a prophet." The Jews didn't believe it, didn't believe the man was blind to begin with. So they called the parents of the man, now bright-eyed with sight. They asked them, "Is this your son, the one you say was born blind? So how is it that he now sees?" His parents said, "We know he is our son, and we know he was born blind, but we don't know how he came to see, haven't a clue about who opened his eyes. Why don't you ask him? He's a grown man and can speak for himself." His parents were talking like this because they were intimidated by the Jewish leaders who had already decided that anyone who took a stand that this was the Messiah would be kicked out of the meeting house. That's why his parents said, "Ask him. He's a grown man." They called the man back a second time, the man who had been blind, and told him, "Give credit to God. We know this man is an impostor." He replied, "I know nothing about that one way or the other, but I know one thing for sure. I was blind. I now see." They said, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? I've told you over and over, and you haven't listened. Why do you want to hear it again? Are you so eager to become his disciples?" With that, they jumped all over him. "You might be a disciple of that man, but we're disciples of Moses. We know for sure that God spoke to Moses, but we have no idea where this man even comes from." The man replied, "Oh, this is amazing. You claim to know nothing about him, but the fact is, he opened my eyes. It's well known that God isn't at the beck and call of sinners, but listens carefully to anyone who lives in reverence and does his will. That someone opened the eyes of a man born blind has never been heard of, ever. If this man didn't come from God, he wouldn't be able to do anything." They said, "You're nothing but dirt. How dare you take that tone with us?" Then they threw him out in the street. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out and went and found him. He asked him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man said, "Point him out to me, sir, so that I can believe in him." Jesus said, "You're looking right at him. Don't you recognize my voice?" "Master, I believe," the man said, and worshipped him. Jesus then said, "I came into the world to bring everything into the clear light of day, making all the distinctions clear so that those who have never seen will see, and those who have made a great pretense of seeing will be exposed as blind." Some Pharisees overheard him and said, "Does that mean you're calling us blind?" Jesus said, "If you were really blind, you would be blameless. But since you claim to see everything so well, you're accountable for every fault and failure." When the man born blind sees for the first time, he sees the world as it is, as compared to the smart Pharisees who see it only through their limited universe. Jesus gives sight to the blind man, certainly out of compassion, but he also does that with the intention of confronting the Pharisees and even his own disciples with the state of their own imprisonment in their own prefabricated reality. Their rule-based way of understanding the divine has crippled them. The idea that you can't heal somebody on a Sabbath, for example. In contrast, the man born blind is not imprisoned in that way. And when his sight is given to him, he becomes actually an unwitting teacher for us all. It turns out that this simple man who has received the gift of sight for the first time in his life embodies in his actions some of the greater truths of ancient wisdom. First of all, he's simple with his words, almost like a child open to all possibilities. He says, "I know nothing about that one way or the other, but I know one thing for sure. I was blind. I now see." And he condemns no one, really, but simply is amazed that nobody knows what is going on, and he calls the Pharisees out for this. And he really assumes nothing, but he instead asks questions. And when asked, he gives this uncomplicated, honest observation about, say, who Jesus is, when he simply says, "He is a prophet." And if you measure what he does and how he acts, he's sincere and he gives his best effort to understand, and he still gets trashed. Reading the Gospel of John made me remember recently reading The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Maybe you've heard of this book. Ruiz lays out from birth that we're trained to accept society's rules as the way things are. But he says agreeing to these rules stops us from becoming our true selves. So in the Four Agreements, Ruiz draws on wisdom from the ancient Toltec civilization, that's from the Aztec area in South America, to lay out a path to a happier life. So if in our living we replace our ingrained assumptions about ourselves, the old agreements, with four new agreements, we can let go of limiting beliefs and live more freely and joyfully. And these new agreements are: first, be careful and honest with your words. Hold criticism lightly is the second agreement. The third agreement is don't assume, ask questions. And the fourth agreement is always give your best effort. So Don Miguel Ruiz is a spiritual guide. He was a former surgeon, and his philosophies and teachings on personal transformation come from, like I said, the Toltec Society in ancient Mexico area. And he published the Four Agreements in 1997, and it's been translated as a bestseller into 52 languages. And he argues that, he said, the world is full of misery and suffering. We're hard on each other, but even harder on ourselves. Too many of us are unfulfilled, unhappy, and joyless. But why is this the case? And he says the framework of our world has been handed down to us through reinforcement from others. We learn how to behave, what is and isn't acceptable, and what to believe, and what's right and wrong. And this belief system then leads us to criticize ourselves and others when we don't abide by the rules we're trained to follow. Now, what it comes down to is we didn't have choice. We inherited these rules, these old agreements, and we live by them, and they're made for us by external forces. The new agreements, they provide a new and positive blueprint for living a fuller and happier life. Ruiz says there's 3 ways to break down the old agreements. He says, first, dismantle your fear-based beliefs, because we do believe that if we live outside the rules that we inherited, there's something going to be wrong and we're going to be punished. And to forgive others is the second guide. And finally, embrace your mortality. This is the same ancient wisdom that's also found at the heart of all the great faiths, Buddhism in particular, and Christianity especially, as it is often revealed in the Gospel of John. So we live in these times of mutual blindness to the goodness of others, and we need a therapeutic application of these 4 agreements, I believe. We need to wrestle with our prejudice towards our neighbors. This is something we have to deprogram. This is a very dangerous situation. We will not have a country. This cannot be sustained. This is the only way we can salvage things. And this approach, I suggest, looks this way. Drawing on these 4 agreements and drawing upon the amazing wonder of this man who sees for the first time in his life, we need to do these things. We need to be careful and honest with our words. We're currently being barraged and beaten to death by really evil and violent words. We need to hold our criticism lightly. We need to assume less and ask questions more. And I'm offering these things we need to do as we try to repair the gap between ourselves and others whom we believe are bad because they don't agree with us. And we always need to give our best effort by sincerely making ourselves available to others. I think if we do these things, we need to be careful and honest with our words. We need to bag the criticism. We need to assume less and ask more questions. And we need to give our best effort and be sincere and authentic. This is the spirit when Jesus announces. He says, I came into the world to bring everything into the clear light of day, making all the distinctions clear so that those who have never seen will see, and those who have made a great pretense of seeing will be exposed as blind. We need to see clearly. We need to see others clearly, and we can do that through the eyes of Christ. That's what the Apostle Paul is saying when in Ephesians he says, the bright light of Christ makes your way plain. With the help of Jesus, I believe we can do this. We have to rebuild human relationships. We have to dump our old agreements that keep us in confinement by rules that no longer really work. And we need to open up to new possibilities with others. In Jesus' name, amen. So thanks again for spending time with us. If you'd like to know more about Center Congregational Church, You can go online at center-church.org, and of course, we'd always love to hear from you. You can call us anytime at the phone number provided or contact us through the email address. So, peace and best wishes on your journey.